there she is, talking about that Takemura guy again. Now, what is she gonna ramble on about today? The ending? Well, you know they're never gonna change that, so don't waste your breath. Yeah. Well, that's probably true, but thankfully I have a creative mind, and when things don't work out the way I think they should, I can just come up with alternatives on my own. That's the power of imagination in creative writing.
Let our powers combine.
Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself though. So, most of you Takemura fans have likely already seen the devil ending. It's basically the ending you get when you decide to follow Goro and help Hanako. It was actually my first ever ending to the game, and I was massively disappointed with it. Why? Well, spoilers inc., but because it just doesn't end very well. The plan? Goro wants you to get fixed by Arasaka, and the only way to do this is to make a deal with Hanako. The whole events of Takemura's main story questline leads up to this, and when you finally get Hanako's attention, you have to make a decision. She offers you salvation, a way to get rid of the chip in your head, but you must first help her depose of Yorinobu. This is a really long ending, and there are several parts to it that start after you leave Misty's. Takemura and Hellman pick you up, and you head to the Arasaka residence to, quote, rescue, unquote, Hanako, as she claims that Yorinobu is holding her there against her will. Once you get her back, you head over to Arasaka Tower, and Hanako brings you straight down to Mikoshi to introduce you to her father, Saburo. When you return, as Hanako leads you to the council meeting, you have a chance to discuss the fact that Saburo had been saved as an engram and kept alive in Mikoshi with Takemura, as V asks him if he was in on it. Did he know that his master was saved as a copy in case of death? Takemura seems incredibly shocked, and this to me is the big turning point for alternates in the narrative. This should be the seed of doubt for Takemura's quest for justice. For instance, if Saburo is not actually dead and is technically still alive as an engram, does Goro even have to exact vengeance on Yorinobu for his death? Would he still be loyal even if his precious master kept such secrets from him? He even says, no, he would have told me. This shows a major break in trust between him and Saburo, and a chance for Takemura to change his allegiance to someone else. Someone like you, maybe. At the council meeting, Hanako shows a projection of her father's engram, and everyone on the board is cowed into submission before his presence. When Yorinobu's men attack and kill all of the board members, there is some dialogue that can be overheard from his men that says, "Spare no one."
Built from the street?
And to be honest, this doesn't line up with what Yorinobu says in the end, so there's definitely an issue with this ending's continuity. To be more precise, Yorinobu mentions that he saw the board obeying his father's projection like scared children, but then he also says that Hanako wasn't supposed to be at the meeting because she was supposed to be at his residence, i.e. not getting hurt. But if he had actually been watching the board meeting to actually see his father and the board members, well then, he also would have seen Hanako. But he claims that he didn't, and given all his actions up to this point to protect Hanako, I'm going to say that this part was pieced together poorly. I'm going to play it like he somehow didn't know she was there, maybe he just didn't see her. Impossible, I know, but considering the holes, I'll just keep it like that. At this point, you go into full-on war with Yorinobu's men as you work your way up the tower towards him. Hanako is insistent that you don't harm Yorinobu, and so it makes her intentions seem honorable, and the fact that it seems like Yorinobu tried to have everyone killed is likely the only thing tying Takemura to her side. It's worth noting that as you climb the tower, you eventually run into Adam Smasher, as you do in all of the endings that I've seen so far at least. There is a nice line here. I would think this would make Takemura pause as well, but at this point he just seems dead set on getting to Yorinobu and taking him out. As you finally approach Yorinobu's office, Takemura grabs your shoulder and says that he'll stay behind because otherwise he would kill Yorinobu himself, and then V's agreement with Hanako would be broken, and there would be no getting that chip out of V's head. The two of you will part ways as you head into Yorinobu's room. Now, Takemura absolutely despises Yorinobu for killing his master, Saburo, but I had a soft spot for him. I didn't necessarily think he was a bad guy. I didn't even know much about his background lore, but my initial gut impression, especially after hearing that he had left the fold, was that there was more to the story than what we were being told on the face. This opinion was only solidified after finding his coat during the heist. I had to look up what it meant, Kotetsu no Ryo. I can't even say that. Ryu. And it means steel dragons, and it was a gang founded by Yorinobu. I read his page on the wiki and will read you a quick summary of the gang's history. The original leader and founder of the Steel Dragons was Yorinobu Arasaka, second son of corporate giant Subaru Arasaka. On his 21st birthday, Yorinobu's father told him about the secrets and goals of the Arasaka Corporation, which left Yorinobu shocked, viewing his father's aspirations as foolish and cold. Hating his role and his father, he wanted to prevent his father's corporation from continuing to grow further, and left home to escape his father's tyranny. Over several months, Yorinobu gathered a mass of tough Tokyo nomads to form Kotetsu no Ryu, hopefully I said that right, the Steel Dragons. Together they have sworn to expose and destroy Arasaka. So after hearing that, do you think this guy actually sounds like the bad guy everyone is making him out to be? No, absolutely not. My first thought was that he was trying to take the company down from the inside, and my suspicions were confirmed during the talk you have with him in the CEO's office.
He once told me anything of value is only a flag blowing in wind, and wind is fear. And then, you know what he did? Blew in my face. That was the one time he was wrong. And others? It worked on them. They feared him. Even now, you saw. Idiots terrified of a dead man talking from a box. Pathetic. I would change that. If only you did not appear.
Wouldn't have changed a damn thing. You are exactly like him. All you want is power.
Power? Huh. Truly, power? 50 years ago, terrorists blew this building into smoke.
Yeah, so I heard.
And? What did it give us?
Not much.
Nothing. But I learned lesson. If planting bombs not enough, what can you do? You become bomb.
So, Yorinobu was a good guy. Yep, get that through your head. A good guy. And we brought him down. That's a pretty rotten thing in and of itself. This is further confirmed from searching his residence. There is a data shard called the Tamed Dragon that talks a good bit about Yorinobu leaving as well as his return. Even better, if you took the time to look around Yorinobu's penthouse at the Konpeki Plaza, even though Jackie keeps harassing you the entire time, you will find emails and data shards that prove Yorinobu had the intention of destroying Arasaka. In this email, he is specifically asking for the engram of Johnny Silverhand, and in another data shard, he was reading about what really happened at Arasaka Tower, which mentioned Silverhand. So while we don't know exactly what Yorinobu intended to do with Johnny's relic, we can infer that it likely had something to do with the destruction of Arasaka. Getting back to your meeting with him in Arasaka Tower, he shows you that he has even gone so far as to purge the company, as he shows you the different headquarters buildings around the world that are now gone. It's not 100% clear what happened and why your invasion cost these people their lives, but perhaps your intrusion forced him to speed the process up. Maybe it was all he could think to do given his impending doom. Still, he might even have been thinking that so long as Subaru was alive, that there was no way he was going to leave the company in his father's hands after everything he had gone through to change it. Maybe he thought this was just the best path forward given his options. After the talk, Hanako enters the room and confronts Yorinobu, and you're asked to leave. But it gets worse. As the events of the devil ending play out, you end up on some space station alone with a psychotic doctor who keeps handing you a cube that you can't solve. You watch the news only to find out that Saburo has been brought back from the dead and installed in his son Yorinobu's body. I was just disgusted by this. There was this awful feeling of being used. I had hoped Hanako would be the good sister she pretended to be, but her notion of wanting to make sure that Yorinobu was unharmed was only so that Yori's vessel would remain intact for her father to take it over. Even as she comforts him with his head on her lap, you can see she has placed the box on the floor beside Yorinobu, the box that holds her father's engram. How frickin' sick and messed up do you have to be? The whole thing about being worried for her own safety lies, and honestly, anyone with half a brain could have seen through it. She mentions how the turning point for her was when Yorinobu sent troops to kill her instead of rescue her during the scene when Takemura has her in the abandoned apartment building. But they don't shoot her. They take her to safety. And even Yorinobu denies wanting to harm her, saying he was trying to keep her safe by keeping her at his residence.
She was to remain at the estate. Stay out of the way. I tried to protect her. Any danger she was in was because of you. No one else.
That is my issue with this ending. It's that there were no alternatives. If you saw through Hanako, you couldn't do anything to change it. We were sent to sabotage the one Arasaka who might have affected real change from within. I couldn't help but feel like V's responses during the talk with Yorinobu were just completely unfaltering too, and didn't make a lot of sense. He's telling you the truth. You can tell, because he just looks completely done. He knows it's over. He's thinking about suicide with the gun on the floor. So what's he's got to lose? He talks about his father, and V just doesn't seem to be listening. It's like two different conversations are going on. None of the responses V has are things I would have actually liked to say. Perhaps at this point, things have gone too far to change your mind, but what if it were possible? I mean, you just completely wrecked all of his men. Who's to say you couldn't turn around and wreck Hanako's men? Now, the one thing that sucks about this is that you'd have to fight Takemura, but what if you could talk him down from it? What if you could convince him that Hanako is an evil wench? So here goes. The alternate devil ending, number 1. Side with Yorinobu. You enter Yorinobu's office, and instead of ignoring the facts before you, there's an option to turncoat. V says something along the lines of, "You mean you're actually trying to take Arasaka down?" As Hanako walks up to the room, you call out, telling her to take a step back. "What have you been up to, Hanako?" you could ask her. "I know you weren't really afraid for your life." She would act all uppity, like you had no right to interfere. And this is when you could easily let the cat out of the bag and bring up good old Saburo. So V would speak up. "You mentioned how those execs were terrified of a mere projection of your father, Yorinobu, but did you know sweet little Hanako here is the one doing your father's bidding from beyond the grave, that she downloaded him onto that box and is acting out his orders?" V would then point to the little black box with the red light shining out. "I wouldn't trust her. She is your father's puppet." He would look hurt and confused, wondering how she could do such a thing after everything he had done to make it this far. "How could you, Hanako?" he'd ask her, and while she was trying to defend herself, Takemura and Oda would return at hearing all the commotion. "V, what is the meaning of this?" Takemura would ask, and you would remind him about how Saburo was still alive and well as a backup copy. "Did everyone know about this except for me?" Yorinobu would ask, and at this point Hanako would be backing up on the defensive as things aren't looking so good for her. "I did not come this far only to leave that man alive on this planet," he'd say, finding his fortitude again and standing to his feet. This is where Takemura would speak up again, practically hissing hate with his words. "How dare you say such words in front of me?" And then Yorinobu would reply, saying, "So you're comfortable serving a man that has no soul? Not like he had much of one to begin with." V is going to have to step in here because it's not looking pretty, and here she can do a couple of things. Let's say, if you have a good relationship with Goro, you can convince him to join your side. Remind him that his master lied to him, that he wasn't even the same man he had originally been since being down downloaded to Mikoshi that Hanako had lied and was up to something, that he should join with you to bring change to the world. The very same change you discussed on the rooftop during recon. Then you could take Hanako hostage. There might have to be a fight with Oda here, or Hanako could just bow out peacefully and let it happen. I mean, if she actually had any heart to begin with, what she was about to do to her brother wouldn't have been the easiest thing for her to do. So maybe she would just back down when given a reason to. So Yorinobu would stay in charge of Arasaka, Saburo's engram would be destroyed. Hell, we could even talk with Yorinobu about destroying Mikoshi, but I know that's a long stretch. But imagine if Yordi thought he might never want to worry about his father coming back, or hell, them ever bringing him back. He might just do it, you never know. Then you could have your relatively happy ending. You could both stay with Arasaka and hope for change under Yorinobu's rule. Maybe it would turn out better, maybe it wouldn't, but I still think there should be the option to see how things go. I would like to see the operation to remove the biochip take place on Earth instead of up in some space station with strangers. Takemura could come visit you at the hospital and it would be a much better, much more personal ending. I would like to see V live, but given the other endings, it's probably not in the cards. Still, if she stayed with Arasaka planet-side, she could return to Japan with Takemura and live what was left for the next 6 months. Sort of how you do currently if you don't choose to get the operation done, but instead of going by yourself to Earth, you get to go hang out with Goro. And with that ending completed, let's move on to another possible ending. Alternate devil ending number 2, leave it behind. What if, at the point before you enter Yori's office, when it's just you and Takemura, at the point where you can choose to tell him, do yourself a favor and get out of here, instead say, Goro, let's get out of here together. Let's go become nomads, forget these people and their crazy bullshit, they're all liars, we're better than this. And what if he actually listens to you? You just took on that entire building with only minor assistance. By the time Adam Smasher showed up, they were all dead anyway. So the reality is that if you and Goro wanted to leave this tower, nobody could stop you. So you just go. The possibilities from there are endless, but the easiest way to wrap this ending up would be to have you run off with the Aldecados. I mean, you wouldn't have to bother breaking into Mikoshi, even though you'd still have a death sentence. It could basically take off where Pan Am's ending does. But instead of being on the tank with her, I'd much rather be in a vehicle with Takemura. We could ride off into the sunset, free from any masters, and whatever happened between the Arasaka siblings would stay between them, and have nothing to do with you. I honestly think this would be the best possible ending. I have a lot of trouble imagining Takemura supporting Yorinobu, even if you tried your best to convince him. That man has had a lot of hate pent up, but I still think the Yori ending would be fun. I'd love to see the look on Hanako's face as her father's engram is flushed down the toilet. Now, I know you're all thinking, come on lady, this is far-fetched and it's never gonna happen. That may be true, but it may be a strong possibility too. I'm going to do a more in-depth video on this soon, but I wanted to mention it because it's relevant. There was a leak posted that states there were some 50,000 plus lines of dialogue that were cut that they are planning to restore to the game by June 2021. 50,000 lines. Do you have any idea how much that is? That's an insane amount. This could be audio in the form of additional choices that were cut because they didn't have time to flesh out the path for that choice. It could be audio for entire quests, endings, scenes that haven't been mocapped yet, and 50,000 lines is a lot, guys. I mean, a lot. So while the specific scenarios mentioned above might not be a definite reality, I think it's a really likely possibility that they will add more regardless. Think about it. So far, 2 of the endings that I've seen have had multiple choices in terms of how they'd end. The devil ending lets you choose to get stored away with Arasaka, waiting until a time when they can find a replacement for your body, or you could choose to go back to Earth and enjoy what time you have left. In the Pan Am ending, where you assault Arasaka Tower with the Aldecados, you can choose to spend the rest of your days free, or you can give your body to Johnny. I don't think it's too far-fetched to think that they might add more choices to these endings. And I certainly don't think it's far-fetched that they will add more romances. I'm looking at you, Takemura. By the way, when I loaded up this old save to make some recordings for the dialogue here, I couldn't help but have a little photo shoot with my favorite grumpy Japanese guy. You realize what a dork I am when you consider how long it took to pick the pose, move around, then hit escape because I'm not in the right position, then wait for the blurry lines to fade away because the relic was acting up. You get the idea. Anyway, I'm seriously going to bank on that Takemura romance. I think it's going to happen. I think the leak sounds pretty legit as well, but I'll go into that with the next video. As always, thanks for watching, guys, and thanks to all of you that take the time to comment. I absolutely love the conversations that get going, and thanks to my new Patreons as well. It's been really awesome getting to see you guys on a regular basis, and thanks to my manager. Wait, I don't have a manager. Sorry, I was getting caught up because that almost felt like one of those Grammy speeches. Do people even still watch that? I mean, I haven't watched the Grammys in 20 years? I just stopped caring, I guess. Okay, rando outro. I'll see you guys later.